Welcome to Dreadful Side Quest, where we dive into the world's strangest and dark stories and/or topics. My name is Vlad, and today we're going to be talking about the Harrisville haunting, or as you might know it, the Conjuring house. Okay, so straight off the top, I just want to come out and say that most of you are probably familiar with the 2013 adaptation of the Conjuring movie, but what you probably don't know is that, no joke, like 90% of that movie is not what actually happened in the real story based off the Conjuring. The only real things that are accurate to the actual story of the Conjuring with the Perron family are probably the dates, the significant dates of the story, all the characters' names of the family and the Warrens, and the location where the story takes place at in the movie. But besides that, that is literally the only information of that movie that is actually correct. Now, the reason why the story is so far-fetched from what actually happened is because when they originally made the script for The Conjuring, they tried to make it the actual story of what happened, but when they sent it in to get reviewed and everything for a rating, the company that was gonna help make this movie said, "We can't do this. It's too intense, it's too gruesome. We can't make this movie if this is the script that you wanna have." So basically what they did is they did all their little movie magic. They said it's based off true events, but those true events are completely different than what actually happened. But that's exactly why I'm here today. We're gonna go over what actually happened. I'm very excited for this. I love the Conjuring story. I love that family. They seem like really good people, and the story behind what actually happened is super, super unbelievably interesting and different. It's like hearing a completely different story altogether. You should be very intrigued by this. It's a lot of very cool and interesting information that we're gonna talk about. And ghosts, can't forget them.
Hey bitch, hold up 1 second.
Oop, it looks like Jerry wants to say something. All right, hit me with it. What's up?
I knocked up this girl a while ago, and she just had a kid. He's a piece of shit and I can't take this. Too bad I'm dead and he's dead too, or I'd kill this little bastard again myself. Please pay my child support. These are desperate times. I've grown very tired and depressed. It's not my fault she was a hot McDonald's worker. But let me tell you, she has got some Big Macs on her for real.
Okay, well, I don't have time for that. I am not about to dive into some unplanned parenthood. I don't know what's going on with you. I'm not gonna dive into that too much right now. We'll talk about it later. But apart from all that, let's begin the story. So first, I'm just gonna give a quick rundown of the history, when the house was built, what the property was being used for at the time, that kind of stuff. The Old Arnold Estate, located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, is an authentic colonial home circa 1736. Oof, long-ass time ago. Whose paranormal phenomenon were made famous by the Conjuring movie in 2013, depicting the hauntings of the Perron family that lived there in the 1970s. Its paranormal past runs deep, as far back as the 1700s, when the spirits of native tribes remained embedded in the land up through the present day, with the many spirits who continue to inhabit and visit the property. But yeah, originally there was a Native American tribe that was settled on the land when it was officially established with the house that is now there today. This is a really old house. This is like an over 100-year-old house. It's old. But yeah, that's kind of what was going on at the time. There was a few other houses on the property, kind of around about a mile apart from each other. There was like a maid that lived in one of them. There was a little boy and his family that lived in one of them. Tragically, they all died. Spoiler alert, but I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. Thousands of visitors come from around the world to observe and connect with the energy here that Andrea Perron, one of the daughters of the original story, describes as a portal cleverly disguised as a farmhouse. Since opening to the public in 2019, thousands of visitors have witnessed and engaged with the abundance of supernatural activity present here. So yeah, this is one of the most haunted places on the planet. I've never been. I would love to go. That would be sick. That would be sick to be able to say that I was in the Conjuring house. It's on my bucket list. I'll make it happen someday. If I ever take off on YouTube, best believe that is one of the first places I'm gonna go to do an investigation for a video. Best believe it. But yeah, tracking back to what I said about that house where a maid lived and where the other house was located where the little boy lived with his family, I'm gonna go over what happened there very quickly because it ties in a little bit to the story of the Perron family that moved into the Conjuring house in the 70s. So the maid, there's a few different theories floating around about what happened to her. Some say she might have taken her own life. Others say she was murdered, so that's kind of still up in the air, but people say that they have seen a maid inside of the Conjuring house kind of floating around, just vibing, you know, classic maid stuff. If I was a maid, that'd be pretty sick. Actually, I take it back. That's a lot of underpaid labor for the time, so never mind. But yeah, so she's spotted every now and then around the house, and the little boy who lived in one of the houses on the property, it is said that he drowned in one of the streams that's nearby, near the house, and his spirit also kind of lingers around in the woods outside that surround the house. People have said that they've seen a little boy peeking his head out from behind a tree, just walking around the house. When people see him try to go up to him, he just disappears. He goes around the corner around the house and is just gone. He goes back behind his tree and then he's gone, you know. But yeah, so that's kind of just a little rundown of the little side hauntings that happened and a little bit of history for you. But now it's time for the main event because we're about to dive into the real story of the Conjuring house. And I'm telling you, it's gonna be very different from the movie, I assure you that. Let's begin. The Perron family moved into their new home, which happened to be a farmhouse originally named the Old Arnold Estate, which was first bought by the Arnold family in 1736. The Perron family moved in during a very heavy snowstorm. They almost immediately started experiencing paranormal happenings within the first 5 minutes that they moved in. As they were moving boxes inside the house, the previous owner was packing the last of his things to move out. The second youngest daughter, Cindy, saw a man wearing strange old Victorian-style clothing standing in the corner of the room, watching the owner of the house packing. Cindy said hi, but the man paid no attention to her whatsoever. So she took the box into the kitchen to her mom and asked, "Who is that man wearing strange clothes standing in the corner of the room?" Obviously, the mom was confused and she explained to Cindy that there was nobody standing in the corner of the room. Now Cindy kind of dismissed this. She was like, "Oh, okay," and the mom was probably like, "Is this something I'm gonna have to look out for in the future? Is there something going on in that brain that I should know about?" Might be a little bit of room for concern there, but who knows? A little bit later, the rest of her sisters walked in asking the same question, which got their mom angry at them. So by now, all of the sisters have seen this man, except for the adults, and they were all asking the mom, "Who is this guy? He's wearing strange clothes. He's in the corner of the living room right now. Why is nobody else acknowledging this except from us?" And that's when the mom started to become a little bit freaked out. Now, before I go on, I should probably introduce the people who lived in this house. Seems a little bit important if you ask me. So the mother's name was Carolyn Perron. The father's name was Roger Perron. Now, Carolyn and Roger Perron had 5 daughters. Andrea Perron, the oldest, Nancy Perron, Cindy Perron, and last but not least, April Perron. And they all lived in this house together. That's the point of the story. But yeah, all of the sisters saw a strange man standing in the corner of the living room. None of the other adults could see him. So that's when the mom was kind of like, this is a little bit weird. Not loving it. The sisters later named this apparition Manny. This spirit was known to be the original owner of the house, Mr. Arnold himself. And many years ago, he had hung himself in the attic of the house. So yeah, that was kind of the first instance where the family was like, something weird's going on here. And this all happened 5 minutes after they moved into the house. That is quick. That is really freaking quick for paranormal activity to start up. But on to the next little spooky situation here. One day, the girls decided to play hide and seek in the house. So one of them started counting and they all went to hide. So a lot of paranormal activity was mostly targeting the mom and the youngest sister, Cindy. And it was probably targeting Cindy because if you've heard this before, then you know, but if you don't, the paranormal tends to focus its energy on younger kids because they're more open-minded and more vulnerable to all this kind of stuff. Cindy was passing the basement and the door slightly cracked open, getting her attention. And she decided that it would be a good place to hide, so she went down the stairs. She saw a big chest and decided to hide in it. So she got in and closed the lid. After a while, she realized that her sisters had given up on finding her, so she tried to open the lid, but it would not budge. She panicked, so she started pounding and screaming for help. She got it open a little, but every time, somebody would slam it back down on her with great force. That is some terrifying stuff right there. If I was ever stuck in such a small place, and every time I tried to open the lid of this chest I was hiding in and somebody tried slamming it down on me, that's horrifying, especially if you see nobody there. I'd be like, what? Also, why? I don't see the point, but there's a few other spirits in this house that I have not covered yet. So the entity that is believed to be the one that was slamming the lid back down so Cindy couldn't escape this chest was known to be the spirit of a caretaker that used to live on this property. Not a caretaker, but a babysitter. Many years after the house was built, I believe in the 1800s, the house used to be a care center for kids and stuff like that. So there was a lot of kids running around this house. However, the owner or caretaker, like I mentioned her, was known for being very violent, very brutal with the kids. She would beat the kids. She would do a lot of really bad stuff to these kids. Some say she would even lock the kids inside of this chest that Cindy was hiding in if they were bad. So it's like really screwed up stuff like that was happening, which would explain why Cindy, inside this chest, kept having the lid slammed back down, preventing her from escaping. That would make sense. It would make sense that it was the caretaker that was watching the kids back then doing all this crap. Because, you know, Cindy's a little girl, the caretaker wasn't too fond of kids, despite her being a children caretaker. Because that makes sense. And she was probably just pissed that Cindy was screwing around and going into places she probably shouldn't. And, you know, stuff like that. She was probably pissed off. But regardless of the reason, that's terrifying. I would have shit myself. I don't do stuff like that, especially in very enclosed spaces. Claustrophobia. Oh, nah, not for me. It was a whole hour before her sisters found her in the closet, covered in sweat and out of breath from suffocation. See, that's another thing I hate, suffocation, my God. Her lungs were probably about to give out after a whole ass hour. That's something. One night, the oldest daughter, Andrea, heard the door of her room open, and Cindy climbed in bed with her and said, "I can't sleep. There's a lot of voices in my room saying that there are 7 dead soldiers buried in the walls." Nope, I'd be out of there in half a second. So Andrea let her sleep with her for the night. Multiple children had drowned in the creek behind the house. Oh shoot, I didn't know it was multiple. I just knew about that one little boy. Oh crap. Wow, that's a nice little surprise. One child had been murdered, and some of them had hung themselves in the attic of the house as well. God, what is it with people and hanging themselves in the attic of this house? But you see what I mean? No shit, this place is one of the most haunted places in America. Look how many people have died already, and we've only been going for like 12 minutes or something now. It's literally death after death after death after death at this house. This house also sat through some of the most famous wars. It straight up sat through the Civil War, World War I, World War II. It sat through all of these things. And Cindy said that there was voices telling her that there's 7 dead soldiers buried in the walls because this house was actually used as a medical center for the soldiers. So a bunch of soldiers from the wars were brought into this place and treated. Doesn't mean they all made it out alive, which would explain why their souls still linger at the house, you know? It would only make sense. And actually, these guys came in one day. I think this was in the 90s. It also happened recently too. This isn't the first time this has happened, but some guys came in and they were looking around the property for potential human remains. They did in fact find that there is possibly human remains inside the walls of the house, which is horrifying on its own. But I believe several years ago, they came back again and they found different traces of human remains just littering the yard of the house and the property. There actually is also a cemetery in the woods kind of behind the house, which is scary enough on its own. But this place, like, it has everything going on for it. I'm talking everything. Yeah, all of these kids dying and people hanging themselves in the attic is really horrible. But the worst spirit was one called Bathsheba Sherman, who had lived in the house in the year of the 1800s and was believed to be a Satanist. So there's a lot of people saying a lot of different things about this lady. Some people were saying she was a very nice lady. She would never do anything like that. She might have accidentally taken the life of a child or something like that back in the day, but on accident. She was super sweet. She would never on purpose do anything like that. Others say that she was caught sacrificing a baby in front of the fireplace by sticking like a whole sewing needle through the baby's skull, killing it almost instantly. That's kind of the most famous theory going around about her. So that's kind of something we'll never know until I tell you about the spirit of her and what it did to this family. Because it seems like pretty dark stuff that was going on with her. But something rather upsetting happened several years ago that I want to tell you about. So after the Conjuring movie came out in 2013, people actually tracked down the grave site of Bathsheba Sherman and completely just obliterated it. They took like hammers to it, they smashed her headstone, they did all sorts of crap like that to her headstone, and it was just really terrible. Regardless, I think you should leave the dead alone. Don't be screwing around with people's grave sites like that. That's one, really disrespectful. If you're doing that, regardless to who it's for, you got something going on up here. You might want to check yourself before you wreck yourself, you know? But yeah, that's really sad. Don't go destroying people's grave sites. That's inhumane, you know? We've all done some bad stuff. We've all stuck a sewing needle through a baby's head. I'm kidding. Calm down. Calm down. I haven't done that. And of course, the baby died of convulsions, so that's really sad. A couple who were paranormal investigators called the Warrens. That's who I'm here for. That's exactly who I'm here for. This couple is a power couple. You cannot tell me that going out and kicking demons' asses is not what a power couple is meant to do on this planet. Oh, that seems like the dream for me. I'd love to be doing that. May their souls rest easy, because I'm pretty sure they're both dead already, which is really sad. I've looked up to these people for a long time. Watching interviews with them, documentaries, when The Conjuring came out, and the Warrens are in that one. But I grew up watching these guys, and they inspired me to go out, hunt ghosts, make my little pieces of content here. They're kind of like the core of my inspiration, so I love these guys. I wish they were still alive. I would have loved to meet them someday, ask them a few questions myself. But I guess that's not gonna happen now, unfortunately. The couple's names were Ed and Lorraine Warren. But yeah, the Warrens have done all sorts of different, incredibly famous paranormal cases. You ever heard of Annabelle? That creepy little shit? Newsflash, in real life, it's not creepy like in the movies. It's literally just a classic Raggedy Ann doll. Here, I'll put up a picture on the screen right now so you can see what she actually looks like if you don't know. But yep, that's Annabelle for you, the real Annabelle. I know it's pretty anticlimactic, but the whole story behind that doll is really screwed up. I'll probably do that a different video. But they've worked on the Annabelle case. They've worked on the Amityville horror case, the video I just did a few days ago. They were there for that. I put a picture of a little ghost boy closer to the end of that video, and apparently the Warrens are the ones who caught that picture. So that's really interesting. If you've seen The Conjuring 2, that movie has the Warrens in it. They investigated that real life case. And honestly, the list just goes on and on and on and on and on of the cases that these people have worked on. If I were you, I'd watch some interviews with them. You can just Google Ed and Lorraine Warren interviews, Ed and Lorraine Warren cases, and you'll find a lot of really interesting stuff about them. Like, I'm talking everything paranormal. These guys are the real deal. Lorraine was a medium, and when she stepped into the house, she could instantly sense a dark presence, and they decided that it was time for a seance. So they started the seance. Stuff all over the house started to shake. Furniture, bookshelves, tables, chairs, and Carolyn blacked out and somehow started talking in a different language that nobody in the room had ever heard before. So here's where a lot of misconception happens. In the movie, the Warrens come in, they're all happy to help the family. They do an exorcism on the mom, which did happen in real life, but the end result is nothing like what happened in the movie. The end result is not a happy end result. It's actually very bad what happens. After the Warrens started the seance, Carolyn was thrown very violently across the room and into a wall, where she then started to have a seizure. At this point, her husband was completely pissed off and immediately kicked the Warrens out of the house. And he was like, y'all are insane. Screw y'all, never come back to my house. So that was one of the last times the Warrens saw the Perrins. They got kicked out of the house. Pretty sure Roger Perrin straight up punched Ed in the face because he saw that Ed and Lorraine were actually making the situation a lot worse than it needed to be. I think he like broke his nose or something like that. After several hours, Carolyn was fine. However, the family was forced to stay in the house until the 1980s because of financial reasons that they could not afford another house at the time. But until then, the paranormal experiences never stopped. Even until today, there are many other paranormal happenings recorded in this historical farmhouse. So yeah, this house is awesome, by the way. It looks nothing like the Conjuring house in the movie. It looks very different. It's your classic log cabin looking farmhouse in the middle of this field, just surrounded by the woods. Oh, it's so secluded, it's so peaceful. Apart from the ghosts, the demons, the dying children, I'd love to live on this property. This would be my ideal home if like a million people weren't just dead inside of it. Possibly having the remains in the walls of the house. But yeah, aside from that, hey, I'd live in this house all day, every day. It's super pretty. Now that, of course, was a brief summary of what happened in the house, of the true story. There's a few other little paranormal things that I left out that I will go over next. So in the basement of the house, which is creepy as hell, by the way, there is this really old well that people believe to have dumped bodies in there back in the day. The basement gets a lot of really negative activity, scratches, bruises, loud screams, stuff being thrown at whoever's investigating in the basement. And then on another occasion, Carolyn Perrin, the mom, was washing dishes inside of the kitchen. And she looks up from the dishes, and in front of her eyesight, there's a window. But right behind that window, just on the other side, was the face of this older woman, absolutely scowling at Carolyn. And obviously, Carolyn freaked out. She fell backwards, and she was like, oh shit. Oh shit. She was obviously very terrified, but that is believed to be her first encounter of Bathsheba, the spirit that so-called possessed her. And then on a separate occasion, the husband Roger, he had a little bit of trouble believing in the paranormal. It took him quite a long time, from my understanding. He was getting very angry at the family because at one point the whole family was finally like, yeah, this place is haunted as hell. And Roger was like, nah. Like a whole book will float past him. And he's just like, oh, it's the wind, it's the wind. But yeah, he started to get very angry at the family for saying that there was ghosts in his house. A lot of fights would break out constantly after the whole rest of the family was like, yeah, this place is haunted. He didn't like that one bit. But yeah, he didn't like all this ghost stuff one bit. The only time he finally truly realized there was something evil in this house was when his wife got thrown across the freaking room and started talking like Italian or something. I don't know what language she was talking. And then your classic knocks, taps, people going up and down the stairs constantly, family pictures falling off the walls, like in the movie. That part did happen. And there's just so much more to it. I'm talking so much more to this story. The oldest sister, Andrea Perrin, she's actually written, I think 2 or 3 books called House of Darkness, House of Light, giving the whole story from start to finish, detail by detail, about what happened in that house. I've read the books. I think they're phenomenal. I think she's an incredible writer, an incredible person. Her storytelling has a lot of details, insight as to how she was feeling and the rest of the family. There's also a lot of love going around in that story. She said it wasn't just evil stuff. It was also a story about how the family reconnected and became stronger than it's ever been before. That's kind of the moral of the story. She didn't only see this place as an evil place. She saw this place as her home. And the books are just incredible. I would definitely go check those out. I will put the link in my bio to the books if you're interested. But I think it's definitely worth checking it out if you want a really incredible story about a real life paranormal invasion of a home. It's very good. I love it. But I think that's gonna wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope now, next time you watch the Conjuring movie, you think about what actually happened in this house, because it is very unique. And it's just an incredible story all the way around. But of course, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, go into the comments, use your little words to comment something. I'm always down for some constructive criticism. And of course, share it with your friends, something I can't do because I have no friends. So that's why I'm sitting here making YouTube videos. But aside from my sad, depressing life, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.